The Highlands of Scotland. The glare of the media fell on the village of Ullapool, where Jerry McCann's sister lives.
Every time some sighting has come around or any part of news, then the media interest shoots up and you're asked to come out and perform. Sometimes I feel like a performance seal for them. But I can also understand why the media is doing that, because as a close family member or getting a perspective from the family, it makes it much more understandable for other people when they see that this does touch us all. Do you know why this was such a big deal, taking a picture of them? They were they'd never had ice cream, the Waynes. Kate and Jerry are fanatic about the kids growing up to have healthy eating. And well, obviously in our family the genes are not so healthy, and you know, it's just they're so keen on their kids growing up eating fruit and fibre and, you know, being sensible. So that was their first ever proper whippy ice cream.
Her face is still in the Portuguese newspapers and further beyond as well. A poster like this has been published by one of the English language papers here, offering a €10,000 reward. Add to that the news we've heard today of a British businessman offering £1 million. More incentive, if incentive were needed, for someone to come forward.
The impact in the village itself has been incredible, because there you are, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, there are these big sky dishes linked up to whatever satellites they're running, and, you know, it just completely takes over. And it's so natural to assume that that's what your life is. And for Kate and Jerry, that's what this last year has been for them entirely. That's, you know, they're fixated. Their daughter means everything to them. And then you have to remember they've got 2 other kids, and it's the only thing I believe that's really kept them sane and alive.
The McCanns have been criticized from many different angles. That they left Madeleine unattended, that initially Kate lacked emotion, that she then cried on demand, that their campaign was too polished, that Jerry was too aggressive.
To deal with. If Madeleine is dead, we need to know about it. As parents, we need to know about it.
I really think that this exploration of the McCanns in terms of their body language, their attitude and so on, is the worst form of pseudo-psychological analysis, amateur psychology.
We are doing absolutely everything to assist the police with their investigation, and we will leave no stone unturned in the search for our daughter, Madeleine.
He's broken-hearted. Yeah, you think, what am I going to do? How am I going to cope with this? And he just has to put on this face and a facade that says, you know, the real soft, caring person is behind this. But you can't let yourself go out there and be as vulnerable as that.
The decision to hire a professional spokesperson, Clarence Mitchell, has also been criticized. The family turned to him when Justine McGuinness left the job. From the start, Mitchell had an impact.
Clarence Mitchell has done a fabulous job for them. I think he's overnight almost, when he was reappointed, when they came back to Britain, he turned the headlines around. There'd been a lot of ill feeling reflected in the British newspapers in particular, and that changed. He managed to get out a much more positive aspect of the McCanns. You know, I'm sure he's also planted a lot of stories that have reflected well on the McCanns.
Mitchell's predecessor took a different view of the job.
I made sure that I stayed off camera for as much as possible, and you know, there were people who wanted to do interviews with me. Those requests for interviews were turned down. As the spokesperson, you need to be non-existent. You know, it's not your name that needs to be known, it was Madeleine's name that needed to be known.
So is Clarence Mitchell playing too large a role in this story? Is he too slick?
They have latched onto a fantastically skillful, professional PR who does the job for them, and he does it well. This is the problem. He does it almost so well that convinces the naysayers, the begrudgers, the people who really are motivated against the McCanns. It convinces them that somehow they have something to hide and they are hiding behind a PR.
Too slick. It's me and a phone. That's it, and a laptop. In the modern era, what am I supposed to do? If they didn't have somebody to help them, given the level of press interest, what are they supposed to do? It's beyond any one family who's never had any real experience with the media to deal with that. It's beyond me, and I'm used to work in the business. You do what you can to help them. It's not me trying to put a sheen on things or divert attention or cover up anything. It's me telling the truth, as far as I know and as far as I can tell.
When you're here and you're speaking to your brother and he's crying his eyes out and screaming and becoming despondent, he'd been doing all of this to try and do anything to get people interested in finding and helping finding Madeleine. That was their rationale for trying to do any of it in the first place.
I'm sorry if some people feel it's been too slick. I don't see that as a criticism. I'm just doing my best for them. If what I did wasn't working, it would be, oh, they've got a disastrous media campaign.
Recently, the British media took a hit from Mitchell and the McCanns, a very public one. In March, 2 UK tabloids, The Star and Daily Express, were forced to issue front-page apologies to the McCanns after publishing more than 100 stories about the family that proved to be false.
Kate and Jerry are pleased that the Express newspapers did the only just and appropriate thing in apologising for the grossly defamatory stories that they've carried on a sustained basis over several months since last summer. It was clear to anybody that could see them, even journalists, let alone lawyers, that they had overstepped the mark in terms of defamation. They were repeating scurrilous allegations with no basis in fact, untrue, and no way of proving what they were alleging, as in some cases as a statement of fact, but even where they repeated it as a claim originating from Portugal, it was still a libel.
This is, without doubt, not to say rare, it's impossible to really summon up any memory of any kind of apology like this by a group of newspapers over a story. It is, for once the word is justified, totally unprecedented.
Some of the harshest criticism of the McCanns has come via the internet, where thousands of people have responded to the story and groups such as truthformadeleine.com have formed. A leading member of this community is Tony Bennett, a former solicitor.
After a number of months, I was very concerned that the authorities were taking no action at all about the child neglect issue. And I issued an application in Leicestershire Magistrates Court for a summons to be issued alleging child neglect. That was quite simply because the McCanns had openly admitted to leaving the 3 young children on their own 6 nights in a row.
Truthformadeleine.com is just one of the campaigning sites. The case has provoked many groups and individuals.
Well, I've written endlessly about the whole McCann coverage on my blog, and I read blogs in which people discuss it. And what's clear there is that people have taken up very definite positions for or against the family. Some people have even formed little groups or societies. They clearly are using special Google alerts to ensure that they keep up to date with every aspect of the story. If I even mention the McCann name, I get more commenters to my blog than for any other story. And I'm afraid they indulge in even worse cases of libel, of abuse, and of the retailing of rumour than newspapers.
The media repeatedly seem to print all of Clarence Mitchell's statements without any kind of query. I mean, every time he opens his mouth, the media reproduces words and echo them.
Have you talked to Mr. Bennett? Why waste your breath? Mr. Bennett, if he's watching, I have to wonder what his personal motives for this are. He has a history of associating himself with high-profile cases. Kate and Jerry have committed no offence under any country's law. They accept they made a mistake that night, and they are paying the greatest price for it. To compound that agony and misery by trying to launch spurious, self-seeking, self-serving publicity-seeking enterprises such as a private prosecution, which was doomed to fail from the outset, is, well, it's beyond contempt, I'm afraid.
A lot of the forums are very, very speculative and alternative, and someone makes a suggestion and that suggestion just gets off and running and people just expand on it, and you know, next thing you know, you're reading it in a newspaper or hearing it elsewhere, and because it sort of does the rounds so much, it gives it credence, but it doesn't for us.
Disappearance of little Madeleine McCann contains something pretty bizarre. But what about Maddie's parents, who left her alone when they went to dinner the night she vanished? We're going to have to talk about it because you asked coming up next.
Also, you got a question?
The most difficult question in the world is to decide whether the press leads people in their opinions or whether the press is reflecting those opinions. I think there's a great deal of reciprocity in which the papers think they're identifying certain traits and therefore promote them, and then the people think those are the traits that are held, and so they hold them and feed them back, as it were.
The high emotions of the Madeleine McCann case, grief, hope, desperation, sell newspapers and make people watch television.
A colleague of mine on a tabloid newspaper told me an interesting story. Some months ago, they paid £20,000 to buy up a kiss and tell story about a footballer and put on no extra copies. The next week, they spent no money on a Madeleine story on their front page and they put on 100,000 copies. So I think that's a very good illustration of the huge appetite there is from newspaper readers and from TV viewers.
They've had to pay £500,000, but to the Express, that's a drop in the ocean. To them, they'd made a great deal more money out of Maddie and the McCanns than that court case cost them, alas.
Some of the senior editors and senior bosses have decided that the paper will take a stance and a particular push on a story because, in many cases, it helps to sell thousands of extra copies. We were told that if they put Madeleine on the front page of the Express and other papers last summer, they would sell 70,000 copies extra a day. It was a commercial imperative.
And in spite of that unprecedented apology to the McCanns, the British press is still on their case with headlines built on leaks and rumors. In the beginning, a 3-year-old British girl went missing.
Please, if you have Madeleine, let her come home to her mummy, daddy, brother and sister.
The circumstances were enough for an entire system to snap into place.
Madeleine was abducted from our holiday apartment.
A system that would make the fullest use of people's needs and desperation and a lot of money. A global media phenomenon resulted. Yet the media's obsession with this story has produced no new leads, no happy ending, no ending at all.
Emotionally, most of the time, I try not to think about it, because when I think about it, I take to my bed and I put a pillow over my head and I just cry hysterically. We need help, and someone out there must know that, and you know, you just have to look at the pain on their faces to know how hard it's hit them, and I just feel sometimes my throat drying up and I think, where is she? What are they doing to her?
We are left with one big question. It's the same one reporters were asking the day the story broke. Where is Madeleine McCann?